Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Feeding People podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you today and so happy to have a great conversation today with my guest. She is an amazing, amazing person, and I think you're really going to enjoy our conversation today. My guest today is Jana Kinsman, and she is the founder of beekeeper, which is an amazing beekeeping project here in Chicago, and my favorite honey ever. And we're going to talk all things bees and honey and food and all the good stuff today. So welcome, Jana.
Thanks, Amy. Stoked to be here with you.
And a very happy birthday to you also.
Thank you.
It was your birthday this week. And we were just chatting about how much you love your birthday, which I do too. And so I just feel like let's take a minute here and encourage people, like, live it up on your birthday.
It's your one day to really be like, I'm so happy I'm alive. Like, I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy in these people's lives. And, hopefully they like you too. And it's just kind of like a fun day to celebrate that.
Yes, that is so true. Like, the attention that you get on your birthday is like nothing else. So why not live that up? Lean into that.
Yeah. Like, why not? And then you shower everyone around you with the same energy when it's their birthday. Like, that's the reciprocal nature of life that we should follow.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to start at the beginning because we're not technically cousins, but I feel like we need a new description for what we are. So my late Aunt Marla and your Aunt Judy were best friends. I believe they met in high school, maybe even younger, and were best friends their whole lives. Your Aunt Judy was literally another aunt in my life, was at my wedding and always such a special person in my life. And I just can't even believe that, like, we are connected in that way. And I remember when Judy told me about beekeeper, and I was like, I swear that's the honey that's sold at the farmer's market I go to. And so it was just like, it's something, I think it was like always in our families or always in the connection in our aunts that we were just like meant to be connected somehow.
Oh, yeah. No, that was such a trip when we made that connection at the farmer's market. And I live for the small town Chicago moments like that. And I have such faith in, like, I really love all the people in my family, and it's just like so great to meet somebody that's like already been vetted by the family. And I'm like, great. I know she's awesome. Marla's a very special person in Judy's life. Like, this is great. It was like instant connection. You didn't have to like worry about vetting this person at all. So it was just great to make that connection with you.
Yes, it was so sweet. So nice. I love that. When you don't have to vet a person who comes into your life, that is a special gift.
Yes, especially the older you get.
Yeah, because you do have to vet. That is true. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about beekeeper because I love your honey. I love your company so much. This is literally the honey in my pantry right now. I feel like I'm like saving this. I'm savoring every drop. This is your buckwheat honey. This was new this year, right? At the farmer's market?
Yeah, this was a special project this year. Yeah.
This is so good. And then the other, I have like scraps in this one. So
we gotta get you some more.
I do need some more. This is the Madison Street Garden. It's one thing I love about your honey is you write right on it where it's
that's
from.
Like last year, Amy. Come on.
Oh no. Is this not good? Should I not be eating
great.
this?
No, it's totally great.
Okay.
I'm just saying, you can eat it faster and then get more.
I feel like I can't. I feel like it's like literally like gold that I'm savoring. And I'm not joking. When people come over and I'm like, would you like honey in your tea? I'm like, the tiniest little drop. I'm so stingy with it. I'm like, this is very special.
No, and it's funny too, because like I'll get people who are like, oh yeah, I got your, Madison Street Garden last year, and I wanted to get the same thing this year, but even like year to year, the honey tastes different. So if you like find a jar that you love, you might not you're going to get something similar the next time you purchase honey, but it's like that honey is like a special moment in time that's never going to come again. And that's something I really love about honey in
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah. I love that. Well, tell us more about Bike a Bee and how you got to this project and how it is that you make the best honey.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun now to think about it because this happened like 12 years ago now at this point. I originally like went to school for graphic design, and I worked as a designer at Crate and Barrel's corporate headquarters in Northbrook, and I had that job in my early 20s for like 3 years. And then I just reached a point in my life where, you know, my position was changing at that job, and I kind of wanted to move in a direction where I had like an active, like physical effect on the work that I was doing. Like I wanted to like make something directly, which was really, it was achievable through design and illustration, which I was doing already, but I just wanted to get more involved in like, I don't know, the act of like growing things and creating things. And I found vegetable farming to be extremely tedious, and I was very bad at it. And I always was interested in insects since I was like a very little kid. I was obsessed with like metamorphosis and caterpillars and butterflies. So I ended up taking a beekeeping course through the Chicago Honey Co-op in like the winter of 2010, 2011. And it was so captivating. I took like pages and pages of notes, and I just like completely fell in love with like how fascinating honeybees were. And so the next like couple months after that, I like went out and did a beekeeping apprenticeship in Eugene, Oregon, where I like got hands-on experience doing beekeeping and working with a beekeeper who did beekeeping for honey production. And he would partner up with like all of these like smaller organizations, like an elementary school or like a, you know, a couple's backyard, like a blueberry farm. And he just had hives set up at these locations. And then we would start the day in his pickup truck and just visiting all of the locations and checking on the bees. And at the time, I was doing pretty much everything by bicycle. I didn't own a car. And so I was watching what Philip was doing in Oregon, and I was like, I want to do this back in Chicago, but like I don't need a pickup truck. I can just use a bicycle and a bike trailer. Like I was obsessed with doing everything by bike. So I came back and I put together a Kickstarter campaign to raise money to start 10 hives. And I started talking to community gardens, mostly on the west side and south side. And every garden I talked to was like, we would love to host some of your beehives. So I started that with them. And, you know, every location got 1 or 2 hives. And it was just such a blast. And then every year I kept doing it, and I kept getting bigger, you know, more hives. And then eventually I got a car. So I do a lot with a car now, but I still do a lot with a bike. But yeah, it's evolved over the years in many different ways. But at its core, it's about beekeeping in community places and, you know, in the open. And then I'm just focusing a lot more lately on just bringing honey to market and getting to interface with the public at market, which has become very meaningful to me. Yeah.
What is it about that that is so meaningful?
I don't know. I kind of early on in my life, I kind of just dismissed it and was like, yeah, I have to go here to sell the honey. But it's just become really fun as like a social occasion for me. If like you just show up with a positive attitude, and, you know, I started meeting people at market, like you and so many other friends that I really care for now. And, you know, people know that that's where they can find me. And so it's just like this great, it's like exactly what you want community to be. It's just people in a third place together, like sharing food. And it's, you know all about this. This is like your MO. So it's like, yeah, it's just kind of the market's the best place to be.
It really is the best place to be. And it's like, I mean, it's changed our lives for sure. When we started attending the farmers market, we everything changed in our lives, I feel like. And one of those things is exactly what you're saying, like getting to know the farmers and the business owners and the growers was just like, it made everything more special. I already loved to cook. I already loved to make meals for people. But it was like once I actually had kale from, the guy who grew it, it was just like, and I would, every night I would, when we were first going, I would cook and I would say, Kelly, your salad is brought to you by Farmer Kevin, you know?
Yeah.
And it was so, yeah, it just, that's one of the best parts. And when people are thinking about just getting started visiting farmers markets and local markets, I'm like, everything changes when you get to know the person who grew that, made that, cared so lovingly for that, and brought it to you that day. It's a whole nother magical element in the meal and the food you make. So
Yeah, I liken it to buying stories. Like I'm all about, like when I travel, I always try to find a market of some sort where I can just go, even if it's not a farmer's market, even if it's just like a specialty market. Like I want to see whatever weird stuff is from that area. And I want to buy those stories of that place. And
yes.
it makes the food experience so much more magical for me, especially if I'm sharing it with people where I can be like, okay, so I was in this place and you tell the whole story of the thing that you purchased. And like that is like one of my favorite drugs, is just like sharing a story about a weird ingredient and then like all of us eating it together and remarking on it. Like it's the greatest thing in the world.
It really is. I love that thought, like collecting stories as you're going around. And there really is no better teacher than the person you're buying your product or ingredient from, because they literally know that thing best. Yeah. And so I remember like when you had this buckwheat honey, I was like, what is this? What do I do? How do I use this? And you told me. And so it's just like, that's the privilege of being able to shop like that, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a privilege for sure. And it's being at market and getting to know people meant that when I did bring that buckwheat honey to market, I knew certain customers. I was like, you have to try this. I'm not trying to upsell you. I just know you get jazzed about certain things. Like, I just want to tell you the story about making this and how I made it and why it's so special. And, people really, they respond to that. And I'm like, this is great because this is how I respond.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the bees for a minute, because I feel like we're always hearing about how magical bees are and how they will save us, and how when the bees are gone, we're gone. So I respect bees so much. I know nothing about beekeeping or anything, but when I see a bee, I'm like, I love you, thank you. And I don't totally know why I'm saying that. So tell us about bees. Tell us why they're so magical, and tell us why are they the key to everything?
Yeah, no, I mean, they are incredibly magical. Humans and honeybees in particular, Apis mellifera, their relationship is so ancient. Like, they're a livestock, but they're not domesticated. Like, we've done a lot of like breeding and selecting for traits that we like, but they are still an insect that operates solely on their insect impulses. And I always like, I acknowledge how magical bees are because I spend so much of my time with them and they are just so incredible, but I can't ignore my like personal history with insects. And just, if you were to put the amount of research and, husbandry and media focus onto literally any other insect, they would be just as amazing, if not more amazing than the honeybee. Which just tells you how incredible the like insect kingdom is.
Yeah.
So I find bees to be a really great. I call them like a gateway bug, because it gets people
a gateway bug.
Yeah, it gets people interested in insects, and then you can be like, well, did you also know that ants have a queen? Or like talk about like praying mantises, or like caterpillars and butterflies are such an easy they're also an easy gateway bug too to get people interested in, because we don't need conservation just for bees. Like we need it for all insects. Bees aren't the only pollinator, like some flowers are exclusively beetle pollinated, and beetles pretty much form like our entire world in some ways. Like we've really like co-evolved with them. Or a lot of plants have co-evolved with them. So I don't know, just all insects are incredible, but bees in particular are really special. And I think a big part of that is that we as humans get to like interact with them in such an intimate way. Like we've figured out how to create structures for them, how to manipulate their like, living conditions to get them to do what works for us. And it's really like, you can't really do that with many other insects. And yeah, it's a privilege to like be involved in that craft that's so ancient.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the main reason why bees are incredible and why they're important for us to like, for us as like a species, is that we use them in pollination for like a third of our food crops.
Wow.
So flowers, have male and female parts, and bees are kind of the intermediary between the male and female parts. They create plant reproduction by like getting pollen on their bodies and then transferring the pollen to the female part of the flower, thus creating fruit or vegetables or nuts or seeds or like so many things that we eat. And there's plenty of native species of bees in the world that do this, and they actually do it better than honeybees. But because we grow monocultures of certain foods like, squash or blueberries or apples, any number of things, avocados, they're all grown in a monoculture, meaning there's only one thing growing. So there's about 2 or 3 weeks in the year where this monoculture is in bloom. So honeybee hives get shipped to that location to pollinate those flowers because there's nothing else growing at that location for the other many weeks of the year. So it can't sustain a native population of insects. So it's actually kind of like, I hate the term food desert, but that is an actual food desert for bees and insects. So we need to have these structures where, commercial beekeepers truck their bees to the location to complete the pollination. And then we get our food that way. So it's mostly we need bees because of the way we've built our agricultural system. But like at the root of it, we really need to just maintain better biodiversity on farms and in many locations so that all species can thrive and we don't need to have an extensive trucking system to bring bees to these orchards and farms.
Wow. Thank you for that. That was such a great little bee class. I appreciate that. Agriculture class. I appreciate that so much. And I love what you said about the gateway bug, but that like all insects need, greater, the word that came to mind was like greater PR.
Yeah, greater PR. They hype people just like me.
Yes. Every insect deserves a hype person like you. Exactly. But yes, I really appreciate what you said about the way that our agriculture system has been, the way that we operate and the way that we eat, the way that we transport food in our country, of course, depends on all of these things that are crucial to feeding a lot of people, but also not necessarily the way nature intended. And so how do we acknowledge both things and also work towards working in harmony with the land and with nature and with animals so that not only every human is fed and has what they need, but also we respect and work in unison with animals, insects, the land, nature, weather, everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, like talk about the biggest question ever asked. That it's so big and so multifaceted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think from your perspective and your work and your own, like, personal connection with this work, like, what do you think about where we're at as a country and a world, and the way that, there is enough food being produced for all people to eat, but still millions of people go hungry each day. And we know this to be true in our city, especially with the inequities that exist in our own city in Chicago. I mean, this is a giant question, but I love asking people like you, what is your perspective? What is your opinion on where things are at and what needs to change so that food is accessible, food is fair, people have what they need, have access to what they need and access to what they want. And we're working together with all of nature so that we're, really all being the best we can be.
Yeah. There's so many prongs to this question. And I am like the nichest of niche producers for the product that I produce. And like I'm so privileged to get to be at a market and charge $15 for an ounces by weight in honey, and that's incredible. And I'm trying to like make a living doing that. And at my scale as one person, for years doing this and having 2 other jobs, mind you, I'm still below the poverty line. So I just like the problem is just so big, and there's so many factors, mostly involving exploitation, as like there's so many ways that we use exploitation to get like more money out of the food system and stuff, and like corners being cut. And so it's like really funny to be somebody who's like trying to do it in a very like what is it, like honest way, like trying to do it in a really right way, and it's still being difficult. And talking with a lot of other farmers in the city in particular, it's just really hard. Everyone struggles to make quality food. But yeah, I mean the greater system overall in this country, like I think a lot about like living in Englewood, and a lot of people talking about like, oh, food deserts, and just there not being the right access to food. That's very true. Like we had a Whole Foods in Englewood and it closed.
Yes, right.
And that was an excellent source of fresh fruits and vegetables. Yes. And, the corner stores, which is where a lot of people get their food, they don't have like a fresh fruits and vegetables selection. And then, there's a couple places where there's a market once a week.
Yes.
And, a lot of people who would benefit from that don't work like conventional hours at their job. So like going to a market on a Sunday may not be feasible. Going to a market in an evening may not be feasible for them.
Going to a food pantry, sometimes I see food pantry hours, and I wonder how people can get to food pantries during very specific certain hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And, is there bus access? Do they have a car? Like, is that worth the gas in their tank to make that trip, So the thing that I've been thinking about lately is kind of like one of the biggest factors is like, it's about people's time. And when you are struggling to make ends meet, or to take care of a family, or to have a job, or to pay rent, I feel like food and cooking becomes lower and lower on the list of priorities of things to do. And I mean, I feel like I noticed this in my own life. Like I live alone. When I'm busy, I am not eating the finest organic food available to me. I am not cooking meals. Like you had one of the questions in the email prompt that was like, how do you feed yourself? And I'm like, oh my God, this is like my biggest shame, as like one of the finest food producers. It's like finding the time to do that is so hard. But I think that it's like, we are under so much pressure to like earn a living and take care of our people, because that is very hard at this time with the cost of things. Like you need to make a lot of money.
Yes.
So I think it's like finding the time to cook, to, be educated around how to cook, like to
Mm.
educate your kids on how to cook, like to create a culture of food. And I'm not even talking like a fancy food culture. It's just like an internal family culture of like, we prioritize cooking. Here are
Yeah.
the ingredients that we use. Like I think it's like a broader like American culture issue of like, we don't prioritize that
Yeah.
because we don't have a great luxury of time, because we use a lot of our time for making money. So it's, certain things that I think are the kind of solution to this sort of thing would be like a like guaranteed basic income. I think the EBT and SNAP program is excellent for that. Like at the
Yes.
market, they do link
Mm-hmm.
matching,
Mm-hmm.
where if you request $25 from your link card, the market gives you $25 in addition to that for fresh fruits and vegetables. And then they also have like an education component at the market where they, teach how to cook. People at market get to talk to the vendors and ask the vendors like, how would you cook this? What would you do with this? So I think the farmers market, if people have the time and the
Mm-hmm.
mental capacity to
Mm-hmm.
like go to a market and learn these things, I think that it can be a great resource. But again, it's about our time and like how we prioritize things. And I think when a lot of people are just prioritizing survival, it's hard to get to the point of like, okay, well, I want to cook a meal. Like I want to eat better.
Yes, that's so profound. That what you said about time, and just, of course, there are all the different prongs, like you mentioned. And I think about all the different factors it takes to get to a grocery store, have the money, make decisions, make a plan, get home, fill your fridge, chop the veggies, before you even sit down to dinner with your family, like all the things that go into it. And not only all the things that go into it, but all the things that have to go right. Right. Like my car has to start. There has to
Yeah.
be, if I got a whole plan and I've got the money for that day and I have a meal plan, my car doesn't start, it's over, you know,
Yeah,
that what,
exactly.
or the bus doesn't show up on time, and so like there are so many factors that have to go right in order to get the food you need and want and get home and actually make that meal and have a warm, delicious, nutritious, connective meal with your family. So I love how I feel like you put all those things together in time, in the description of time. And like that's opened my mind to thinking about like when I think about this and like my role and what it is that I have to contribute, I can think in that scope, like what in this scenario would help or support someone with more time so that they would be able to, get the food. I often think like when a neighbor or a friend is in need or when I'm in need, it's about money only, right? Like, do you need money for groceries? I need money for groceries, that sort of thing. And like, how can we help each other? And that is an important factor. But you've opened my mind to time. Like, also, is time a very practical thing? Can I watch your kid? Can I drive you? That sort of thing.
Well, and time and money are like just classically interchangeable when you really think about it. Like if I had unlimited money, like I would be spending so much more time eating better. I would spend more time in my garden growing food. If I didn't have these responsibilities to make money, then I would spend so much more time like with the things that I value in food,
Yeah.
Um yeah, like I really appreciate you breaking down all these steps, like, and like in our worlds, like what are the things that we can, like how do we help people cut corners, like use instant rice. Like for this dish we're just focusing on cooking
Yes.
this green really well. Rice takes a lot of time. Just use this, you can prep it in seconds. Like those sort of things, like how do we prioritize the value in a meal and make
Yeah.
sure that that's like easy for folks.
And removing, you mentioned this earlier about just feeling shame about how you feed yourself or take care of yourself. And we have to do our best at removing the judgment and shame that we do put on others. I mean, of course, like we're responsible for how we do that for ourselves, but like the judgment and shame we cast on others for not making a meal totally homemade or not using all organic or
Right.
not buying from the, like there is no, I mean, I read recently that if the best that we can to look at food as neutral, not good nor bad, but a neutral thing, and go from there, the better. And I felt like that was helpful to me because food is only positive to me. Food is only like very magical and wonderful, but I recognize it's not that way for everybody. And
Right.
so to start from, food being a very neutral thing, and it's all of the other things that go into it that make it special and wonderful. So, right, I've been going to my grocery store that I can walk to and doing a couple nights a week. I do the salad bar, pre-made and come home. And it's like, I love cooking. I love prepping, all of that. But like, to come home with a salad done that literally I can't believe how that feels in my body. It feels so good to literally have done nothing.
Yeah.
So no shame for things like that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's more like, I can't keep ingredients in my fridge. 'Cause I'm all over the place. And, I'm eating at other people's houses. I'm like eating out. I'm eating on the road. I'm like, so it's like I just don't have, my fridge is not diverse as I would want it to be. And so, I mean, that's a reason why I love fresh produce is because it lasts so much longer.
Yeah.
Like you get stuff at the market and it lasts like 5 to 7 days longer than something you would buy at a grocery store. So I find that like I can keep stuff in there fresher. But yeah, I just like I don't eat enough to like have a great variety in my own home cooking. And that's the part that's like that I'm not, it's not shameful, but it is like I'm disappointed in that aspect of my life.
Yeah, of course. Of course, it's something you wish for, and when the time is right, we'll be there. So what, I mean, if you do want to answer this question, like I love asking people who feed others, like how they are fed themselves. And it doesn't have to be like how you feed yourself, but like, how are you fed? Do your friends cook for you? Do you already mentioned like you go over to people's houses for meals a lot. I have the opinion that like people who create or make food or are part of our food system somehow are actually like some of the best eaters because they can like appreciate how it came, how it was made, all it went into. Like when people invite me over for dinner, I'm like, I will be your greatest guest ever because I will appreciate every single bite of what it took to put this dinner together tonight. So don't even worry for 1 second. And I'm putting that out. This is everyone, please invite me to dinner. I'm putting that out into the universe right now. I am the best guest you'll ever have. I will enjoy every bite. It will be no lie. But how are you fed? How are you fed as you work hard to feed others?
Yes. I'm in a season of my life right now where I'm doing a lot of childcare with my friend and her 2 kids. And I'm at her house many days out of the week, and she has been feeding me a lot. And she is an incredible cook. Like I am so jealous of her ability to like not read recipes, but she just like follows recipes and selects recipes in the beginning of the week, and then she makes them, and then she has food ready for us like when I'm done getting the kids from school and stuff. Like it's just, I'm getting so fed by her right now, and it's every meal is just fantastic. And I like, Madeline, shout out to you for how much you feed me.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Spiritually and like physically. I also do like, there's a great little taco place near the plant, which is where I have my like honey workshop. I mean, visiting my family at home I eat with them. We go out, they make food. I do a lot of very simple cooking at home. I've really been into cabbage lately. It's like it lasts forever in the fridge.
Yeah.
And it's really easy way to get fiber, easy way to get your brassicas in. It's just, yeah, it's so basic, but it just keeps better than other brassicas for me. And I have a huge garden in my backyard. I have like 3 enormous, I think they're 18-foot raised beds that are like deep. They're like a inch deep raised beds. So I grow all my herbs out there. Every year I grow a ton of food that I never get around to eating or harvesting because I'm so busy beekeeping.
Yeah.
But yeah, this past summer I grew some beefsteak tomatoes, and I remember just harvesting one tomato after a long day and just eating the whole thing with salt, and like that was my only dinner. And I want to replicate more moments like that with my garden. So I'm always trying to figure out that time money balance and making sure that I create enough time for myself to just spend more time in the garden and create these food moments. But yeah, I would say, I don't know, I get food from many eclectic places. And yeah, it's always fun figuring out where I'm going to eat next.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of like local food and fine dining, and I love all food story experiences. And I would say that like all of my like fun money goes to eating out and trying new restaurants and having that experience, because food and food stories is so, same as you, so joyful. And I'm just so lit up by new experiences. That really makes me so happy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that about you. We definitely share that in common.
Yeah.
Definitely. Often say like my love language is trying a new restaurant with somebody.
I love that. That's
nothing makes me feel more loved.
I have a couple of friends that it's like, I know we would both just be like singing to go out and try something new at a spot.
Yeah. What's your current favorite restaurant in the city?
It's always going to be Lula Cafe. Just like I got their cookbook as a gift. And I was like reading the intro and just like sobbing through the entire intro because of like how the restaurant came about, and just like they have all these anecdotes about local farmers, and it just, I know how much they care about local food. And it's one thing to be like, I'm an individual, I shop at the market, I have a relationship with my buyer, but it's like another thing for a restaurant to have essentially supported a farm and helped that farm become anchored in the city of Chicago. Just thinking about the boon that must be to that farmer to know like I have a market where I can, like, they depend on these restaurants.
Yes.
And I just think no one is doing it as good and as nobly as Lula Cafe is. So that's like my perennial like favorite forever. Like any restaurant that I praise is usually because like I like how they treat their employees and I like how they treat their farmers. Like that to me is real integrity.
Yes. I love those two like qualifications too. I feel like sometimes when people are trying to choose restaurants, it's hard to like assess like which, there's so many competing values. It's hard to assess like which ones matter most or how to make decisions. I feel like people get overwhelmed quickly. Like, it's not locally sourced. It's not, there's bad management. And it's just like, okay, it's all right. Like choose one or two values that work for you and make those decisions. And I had a good friend say, we can't do all the things all the time. And so you have to determine, like there's a couple restaurants on our list that we're never going to go to because of the way that they treat their employees, right? But that doesn't mean every restaurant we go to treats their employees perfectly. You know, it's just like we're doing the best we can. And there's a couple that are on the no, never going list because we don't give money to that.
Yeah, and like I'm happy to try. I'll try any restaurant
Yeah.
once or twice, but if it's like a special occasion or I want to impress somebody or like, like I want to give them my money more frequently than anything else, like I'll choose the ones that have the values that I value.
Yes.
I'll tell you one more being fed story that I just experienced this morning. So I had my birthday party last night. Two friends brought food gifts. One brought like local hot dogs from a local deli and buns, and one brought pickless, like Haitian pickles.
Yeah.
So for lunch, I had 2 hot dogs, some of those pickless, and buns. And it's just like most of my meals are hodgepodges like that of like some leftover, something from somebody, all cobbled together. And like that's how I eat mostly, is just I eat somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I imagine you felt loved and warm, and
I was thinking about them the whole time. I was just like, this is how I like to be fed.
Yes.
I really like how you put that. Like, how are you fed? That's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate everyone who is working to feed all of us. And I worry about I worry, like, how are you being fed? Are you being fed? Because you're thinking so often about getting food to others. So Jana, this has been so much fun. I have loved this conversation with you, and it's been so nice to chat this way. And I'm very hungry now because of all the delicious food you just described. So I got to figure that out. I got to go do something with my honey now for sure. And I need to get some more. And I want to tell everyone, bikeabee.com, right? If they want to get some honey.
Yep. There's an online store. I ship everywhere.
Got to do it. You do the mini jars too, which I want to highly suggest to people. I did that one year when I hosted Thanksgiving. I actually bought those as like a gift for everyone when they walked out. And that was so fun. You should totally do that if you're hosting a party anytime soon. But thank you for all of this. You are pure magic, pure
so are you.
Honey gold.
I'm so glad you like it. Thank you so much for having me on.
I love it. Okay. Thank you, Jana.
All right. Bye, Amy.